Hi, today I have a question from Julia, who's taken my course on selling with stories. I think I've done a few videos on stories recently, but this is just the questions that are coming in. So here's Julia's question. You say a business story has to be true, but can't a good fictional story be used to teach a valuable business lesson? Man, this is a good question. Can't a good fictional story be used to teach a valuable business lesson? So this is Julia kind of pushing back a bit, because in the course and in my videos I constantly go on about the benefits of using a true story, a real story, when you're using stories in any kind of marketing communications. And I do that because I think it helps keep it real. I think it makes it much easier for people to relate to real stories that have actually taken place, within the workplace. And I also recommend it just to avoid, I guess, the worst kind of stories out there, the manipulative stories, the stories like, when I was 23, I was living in a dumpster and now I own 3 Lamborghini motor cars. Kind of nonsense stories that are just told to manipulate people. So we don't like those stories. So that's another reason to kind of keep it real and use real, true stories. That said, I think Julia is absolutely right, and I'm really grateful for the question, because she made me kind of think about this for a bit, and I thought of a story that I tell myself, and it's fiction. I do this myself. I tell this fictional story. So let me tell you a little about that. This is a story I use when I'm teaching kind of success principles to freelancers, freelance writers and copywriters, because I do a little bit. I used to do some coaching, and I've done some sort of virtual coaching. And I have a couple of courses on this as well. So one of the things I try to teach freelancers is the difference between your personal persona, where often you're just the regular person at home, and your professional persona, which to my mind should be something a little different. So to illustrate this point and to try to share a business lesson through story, I tell this story. So let me tell the story. Imagine, and it's important because this is fiction that I start off with the word imagine. Imagine the CEO, the president of some big company on Wall Street. He's a banker. He's a mean banker. He's all of his staff are terrified of him. He's a real kind of bear of a boss and hard to live with, and he's very tough on everyone. Anyway, he spends his day being the tough president or CEO or both, and at the end of the day he takes the elevator down to the street, gets in his limo, and is driven by his terrified limo driver back home. Then he opens the door to his house, and there on the floor he sees a backpack, a jacket, and a pair of dirty boots, and they've just been left there by his teenage son. So our big scary CEO calls up to his son to come and clear it up. And this voice comes down from upstairs saying, whatever, or later, or the kind of thing teenagers say. And now, of course, we see the CEO not with his professional persona, but his personal persona, which is just a dad like the rest of us, or a parent like the rest of us. And if you've ever had teenage sons, you're familiar with the whole kind of whatever later thing. So I tell that story just to illustrate that there can be a very significant difference between your personal persona and your business persona. And then I encourage freelancers to develop not a mean, nasty professional persona, but something a little stronger and more self-confident than perhaps their personal persona. So that is a story that I tell. And funny thing, as I was thinking through this after I got that question from Julia, sometimes I forget that that's not a true story. I think in a way this is the nature of story, is that after a while, after you've told a story a few times, it becomes kind of embedded in your mind and it feels true. And you forget that it's not true, that it didn't happen, that you made it up, that it's a product of your imagination. So fun, interesting point about stories, how they can go from fiction to reality unless you remember. But in answer then to Julia's question, can a fictional story be used to teach a business point? Then clearly yes. All I would suggest is that you be careful about it, and that you do not overblow your fictional story, that you don't do it in a way that seeks to manipulate the listener, and that your purpose is always to be helpful and simply to use story to illustrate a point, to try to teach a valuable lesson. So thank you again, Julia, and I hope you found that answer helpful. Thanks.